Welcome to Melt University's 2020 summer program. This year, our virtual intern program will help you build your brand, inform you on a variety of career paths, and introduce you to top executives in sports and marketing. Here's your host, President and CEO of Melt, one of the largest independent sports and event marketing agencies in the country, Vince Thompson.
Welcome, students. Summer Virtual Melt University 2020. We're on a roll right now with our great podcast, our guest, our lunch and learn. We've got tremendous momentum and tremendous feedback, tremendous participation. But I got to tell you, our next guest is one of the new and emerging pioneers, entrepreneurs, thought leaders in all of sports business, and all of college sports. My friend Jim Cavale is the founder and CEO of INFLCR Inc. That is INFLCR. If you're not familiar with it, after this podcast, I want you to look it up. I want you to look Jim up. I want you to look and see what he's doing. There's going to be tremendous career opportunities for you as the campus is the professional laboratory, as social media continues to emerge. And as we talk about a lot on our podcast, name, image, and likeness, NIL. Jim is on the front edge of that curve right now for the athletic departments, and will continue to emerge for the students. I had been following Jim, and we finally had an opportunity to meet on the sidelines of the Auburn, Alabama game. I admired his work. We went over. I've spent some time with him in Birmingham, breaking bread, building the relationship. You know, we're talking a lot about relationships. So what is INFLCR? Right now, more than 15,000 pro and college athletes use this app to access their pictures and videos in real time from games. So what Jim is doing, and it is just fascinating. We're going to get into it in just a second, but he's an innovative entrepreneur, very successful many times over. And it's a software that is assisting the athletic departments in helping current student athletes manage their social media pages right now. He helps them build their audiences. He's able to work with the athletic departments and use the images and trademarks to say the Auburn Tigers, and really is building just this amazing storytelling content platform. But he's originally from upstate New York, and he started his path and his journey, believe it or not, playing baseball in Montevallo, Alabama, University of Montevallo. And if you see Jim or you look him up, he looks like he could probably get on the field right now and suit up with the guys. Started his professional journey as director of broadcasting for the Gulf Shores Conference. Is that Gulf Shores, Gulf South? I'm in Gulf Shores. My head's in Gulf Shores, Gulf South Conference. Then his first successful entrepreneurial venture was a famous gym called Iron Tribe. He grew it from 1 to 45 across America, did a successful exit on that, and which led him to founding INFLCR. But he's going to talk about his path and journey as an entrepreneur, because, Jim, as we tell our kids, life is not linear. You're going to get thrown off the saddle. It's how you get back on there. But he's a 3-time Inc. 5,000 entrepreneur. Not 1, not 2, but 3. And not only that, the guy practiced what he preaches. He leads his company as people with very high value systems. He's a great family man. And so it gives me great pride and pleasure to welcome Jim to Virtual Summer Melt University 2020. Welcome, Jim.
Hey, it's great to be here, Vince. I really appreciate you having me.
Would you like me to take you everywhere you go, and I'll introduce you like that everywhere you go?
Yeah, man. I just put you in my suitcase everywhere I go, and I feel like my mom wrote that for you.
Right. So Jim, really tell us from the top, and then we'll kind of work our way back. Tell us, take some time to explain to our audience, our kids, what INFLCR is.
Yeah. So, INFLCR is a platform that athletes use to build their brand on social media, to grow their following, their engagement rates, their social media brand, so that they can have more opportunity in their life, because their brand is really now their character footprint. People go to social to search who you are and really want to dive in and find out who you are before they even meet you. And if you're a college athlete, you have a huge opportunity to tell your story in a way that fans, A, want to hear about it. They want to follow you, but they want to engage with it. They want to learn more about who you are beyond the game you play on the field or court. And Influencer helps athletes do that. And the way we do that is we sell software licenses to college athletics departments across the country. And when they buy into Influencer for one sport or all their sports, they're essentially saying, hey, we want to get all the content our staff shoots, pictures, videos of practice games. We want to get all the content the external media shoots, photographers and videographers on the field from USA Today and Getty Images. And we want to get all that content to the athletes so they can share it and use it to tell their story and build their brand. So we have more than 100 college athletics departments that have partnered with us to do just that. More than 700 college teams. We're actually at 22,000 active athletes now on the Influencer platform that are using Influencer to share that content to their Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, and essentially grow their audience, grow their social media brand. It's been a lot of fun because I'm a former athlete, student athlete, and I really have a passion for any young person who's made it to this level, playing sports on this level, to help them maximize their potential. And I don't just mean physically, I don't just mean academically, I mean with their brand, and that's what we do.
Well, again, it's revolutionizing college athletics, college sports, college athletic departments, and student athletes. But to our listeners, to our students, it's, what Jim is saying is just the tip of the iceberg. First of all, there are nearly 500,000 student athletes in thousands of athletic departments across the country. And for a long time, student athletes were not allowed to monetize their use of image and likeness in a social media environment or other environments, similar to, say, my son Carter, who's a 20-year-old sophomore at University of Georgia, was able to do in a YouTube environment or Instagram environment or any type of those environments. And these are the ones that need it the most. They're working hard. They're studying, as Jim says. They're disciplined. I love to hire student athletes, former student athletes. But this subject and issue, Jim, of name, image, and likeness, which sounds really sort of intimidating, but it's really just giving these athletes permission to be able to monetize their image. Talk about sort of where this groundswell came from, and really break it down and help our listeners, our students, really truly understand what it means. And then I want to segue into where you see the careers going and future careers going for our students and our listeners.
Well, you want me to start with where the NIL movement came from?
Yeah, just kind of let's talk about it a little bit.
I think it's a result of the middleman, so to speak, being cut out through the power of social and digital media. I mean, the athletes have become channels, and they have bigger followings on their own and collectively than their teams do. And so on social media, those followings command an audience that's worth a lot to an advertiser. And we've seen this at the pro level. We've seen athletes make anywhere from hundreds to thousands to millions of dollars with their social media on a regular basis. And, so that's one place. As technology's evolved, technology is always ahead of the rules. And in this case, technology has put the power of owning and distributing your message into the hands of athletes without having to rely on anyone else to do it for them. We've seen this with some of the things that have gone on in society more recently with, George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement really gaining tons of traction through the voice of athletes on their social media. And they don't need some news station or media company to interview them to get that message out. They can do it on their own. And so that's one big reason that we're here right now when it comes to NIL. And don't forget that phrase, technology is always ahead of the rules, because it is. Look at Napster. Look what happened to the music industry. It's just the reality of how business works and how consumers behave. And so that's one big reason. The other components have to do with everything from the amount of overall advertising dollars being spent in college sports has inflated to a large billion-dollar number on an annual basis,
right?
A multi-billion-dollar number. And you know about this well with what you do at Melt. And when you look at that, you look at just even March Madness alone and the fact that it generates over $1 billion for the NCAA, and look at not having March Madness this year and how it affected the budgets of schools and the NCAA. It's a real thing. Advertisers spend a lot of dollars on college sports, and that commercialization of college sports that's occurred, especially over the past decade, has inflated everything from rights fees for conference and national TV deals. And of course, it's inflated salaries of head coaches, athletic directors, and other leaders that work in college sports. And this inflation has really created an even more, magnified microscope that's looking at this, saying, well, if the growth's happening there, like what's happening for the athlete, because they're the ones still working hard, playing the games, and creating this value. And so no matter where you stand on name, image, and likeness, those two components, athletes having their own channels, social media, and the amount of advertising dollars being poured into college sports and the commercialization of college sports, those two things have led us here.
Mm-hmm. So I love that phrase, athletes can have their own channel. But that same rule and axiom applies to our students and every student as well, correct? So every student can and have and build their own channel. And so, as an expert, Jim, and what I consider you an expert in the social media space, the name of my book is Building Brand You. This is all about building the brands of the student athletes. They have the platform to build their brands on, but so do all the other listeners and the students at universities and colleges and Melt University as well. What are some of the tips, or what are some of the traits, or what would be your top 3 tips and top 3 watch outs if I came to you as a person, I came to you as a student, or I came to you as a student athlete to say, what and where are the 3 things that I need to be doing right now to build my profile on Instagram or blogging or WordPress or LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever? What are some of the top 3 rules? And then what are some of the top 3 watch outs or things that we shouldn't be doing?
I think the top things you need to do is, first of all, you have to post and post often. You have to show up in people's feeds, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, it doesn't matter. You have to be active. Number 2, you have to not just post often, but while your quantity matters, your quality also is important. So posting a variety of content and not just all the same stuff, so that people can get a picture of who you are beyond your career, beyond your family, beyond your hobbies.
Mm-hmm.
You need to see all those things. And then lastly, posting with a voice. So not just posting often and posting a variety of things, but posting with a message that you're about, that people know you stand for, and really finding that niche and owning it. And so I think those things are all things you need to do proactively. And then, from a preventative standpoint, you need to think about what accounts you follow, what posts you like. I mean, we've already seen recently how that can get you in trouble. And so I think thinking about who you associate on social media, the same way you think about who you associate with in real life, is really important. And of course, people can follow you. You don't have to control that and have a private account, but you need to think about who you engage with on social,
right?
What you're engaging about, and really, what you've put out there. When you send post or you press, when you press post or press tweet, you need to really think before you do that, because you're essentially saying that this is who you are to a bunch of people who will never meet you in person.
Mm-hmm. Well, so what you're saying is, and I like from the positive side, I like post with a voice. And we tell our kids that pursue whatever it is you're pursuing, pursue with that passion. And that passion will come through in that brand voice or that tone of brand voice that we say, because you got to, all of these kids have got to begin looking at themselves as brands. They have the tools. On the other side, Jim, we call it we even go further. We call it the grandmother rule. Don't post anything that you wouldn't want your grandmother, to see online. And this was obviously before kind of everything, is really beginning to hit the fan sort of, left and right at speed. But I do think those are 3 great rules. And I hope you guys are really taking notes on that. So, Jim, when we broke bread together and you told me about your path and your journey, and obviously you've been a very, very successful entrepreneur multiple times. Obviously it's not an accident, but somewhere along the way, as I recall, you hit a pothole. You had a hiccup. You got knocked out of the saddle. Tell us about what that was. Tell us about that experience, and then tell us how that experience has helped you evolve to be a more successful entrepreneur and into what you're doing today. Because as I recall, it's a great story.
Well, I've got a lot of those stories, so I'm not even sure which one you're referring to, but I'll tell you this. Even just with this business, the amount of trials and challenges that I've had to overcome has produced so much fruit for this company's story. And I think that that's something you have to embrace. There's a saying, embrace the journey more than the destination. Embracing the journey means embracing conflict and welcoming challenges and having faith in yourself and in a plan to overcome those challenges. And for me, that faith even goes beyond that into my faith in my creator, my God, because without that, I really don't know how I'd make up the gap between, what I can control and what I cannot control. Because there's way more I can't control than I can. And I don't think anybody could say it the other way around, because if you tried to, you'd realize, looking back in hindsight, there were so many things you thought were part of reality. There's so many plans you had that you thought were correct, that you had to go through conflict to realize that you had some things wrong, but you learned from them. And so the story I tell is, when I was starting Influencer, there was an entrepreneur that I had a tremendous amount of respect for, a tremendous amount of admiration for. And we had struck up a relationship, a connection that, I was really excited about, because he plays in this space, and he's based in New York City and is one of the biggest social media influencers, but especially in the sports world, he's well known. And, he had made me feel like we were going to partner with Influencer. And for me, coming off of a pretty good win with Iron Tribe and building a franchise brand with my partner that had 4 locations across the country, and what it did, Inc. 5000, you mentioned that. Like, I was coming off of it with a win, but to me, getting this partner to start Influencer was going to expedite another win really fast, because I already believed in what I wanted to build, but I felt like the speed that I could get from this partnership would work. And it turned out that, as I was traveling up to New York to work on the partnership deal, he had changed his mind and reneged on me and decided that, he wanted to go in a different path and wasn't interested in this investment, this partnership. At the time, it crushed me. But it forced me to do what I've had to do in the previous businesses I built, which is build it the right way on my own with the best team I could find, the best vision I could set. And ultimately, while it was harder and it might have took a little bit longer, I still was able to build Influencer up to a place where I could sell it to Teamworks just this past year and merge with a company like them that's been around a decade longer and has really created an amazing amount of opportunities for my investors, my employees, and myself in leading this company into the future. So I look back and I think, if I would have done that deal, I wanted it so bad at the time, but that gentleman probably would own about half my business. But instead, I was able to do it. I don't like to say on my own, but I was able to start building my team with my co-founder, who's my CTO, and the developers he brought in, and with the other people that I hired, and really build the business on my own, and with a great team, and with a great set of partners that we started with, like Auburn and Kentucky and UAB, who are our first 3 clients, that helped guide us to the place we are 100 clients later that's doing what we're doing in college sports. So I just want to encourage people who, it might be a relationship with somebody that you're trying to develop, or it might be a business deal you're trying to close, or it could be any type of dream that you have or desire you have. You might want it now, and you might really think that it's what is needing to happen for you to be successful. But if it doesn't happen, just realize that you could look back and say that was the best thing that ever happened, because it brought you through a journey that created an even better destination.
Well, and I think you hit on 2 huge things that we tell our kids all the time. First of all, unanswered prayers. Secondly, the letters N-O don't spell no. They're the first 2 letters to the words not yet. And so, and everybody says, well, Vince, what do you do for a living? I say, I'm in the rejection business. I get told no every time. And Jim, like yourself, because you and I are both very passionate, emotional, creative guys, we tend to take a lot of that personal. And what we have to understand, that it rarely has anything to do, that decision, whatever it is, you didn't win the business, you win the pitch, a partner rejects you, whatever it is, you don't really ever know what's going on in a person's life at that time. And so you got to just pick yourself up. And to our students and to our listeners, I think that's a tremendous example. And the other one I was talking about with you is I remember you telling me, maybe even as a baseball player at Montevallo, you were way ahead of the curve from a technology perspective, and you were starting some kind of company that was going to do sports over a dial-in or something like that. Anyway, but some of that learning that you have now been able to apply to the success of Iron Tribe and Influencer. So nuggets of quote unquote real or perceived failure can be the nuggets of success if we keep grinding, right?
Yep, you got to keep grinding, no doubt.
So you are running one of the the hottest companies to me in the country, in the space. We're all about helping kids get career opportunities, mine career opportunities, develop career opportunities. We say that the campus is the ultimate professional lab, particularly for people who are in live events, sports events, want to be in sports marketing. What should a kid be doing now to be able to get on as a volunteer, as intern with the athletic department, and work on the social media side of the house? Give them some tips. If Vince is at Auburn and I want to work at Auburn or Kentucky or UAB, talk about some of the things that you see that can help these kids get in the door, particularly in the content creation side that you're in with Influencer in the universities.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, the opportunity to really get to know athletes and get to understand exactly what they want and how to help them build their brand. I think help them basically do what I'm talking about today on this interview, help them tell their story often, help them tell their story with variety, help them tell their story with a message. I think that's a big opportunity if you're a college student, because you have athletes who play at your university who eventually may be able to even make money commercially. And if I'm a college student, I'm thinking, how can I get in on helping athletes build their brands in a way that my school might not be staffed up to do? It seems like a big opportunity in a lot of ways. I think schools are going to be looking to build teams of students to help with this as well. So start that program and ask your school's athletic department, or maybe it's an academic program, to lead that as well. I think that's just a huge opportunity on campus with NIL and everything that's going on.
No, and like I said, I think that if students immerse themselves in this evolution of name, image, and likeness, NIL, if you study what Influencer is doing, if you study the universities and the programs that he has ongoing or growing or acquiring relationships with, you anytime you see those deals, and if you're reading these trades, and Jim gets a lot of press in the trades and these types of things, Jim, what I'm teaching them is that, read these trade, whether it's front office, D1, athletic director, mine these trades for nuggets of information and job leads and resources and follow up. So, but if a kid wants to intern for you or for Influencer, what gets your attention on the outreach? Is it is it an email? Is it a solicitation on LinkedIn? What rises, because I'm sure you get hundreds of thousands of these. What rises to your level to get your attention, to get that foot in and work for one of the most dynamic companies in America, Influencer? What catches your eye?
I think, the ability to present exactly what you bring to the table, why you want to be a part of this, and even showing a little bit of how you would bring value. I think like a generic, hey, I'm interested in an internship is a lot different than, hey, this is something I'm real passionate about. That's your what. This is why I'm passionate about it. And this is how I think I could bring value to your company through following that passion. And I think that'll really stick out, not just for me, but for most guys that are, running a company. And when you look at women and men that run businesses, they're obviously busy. They have a lot going on, but they're also people who were in your shoes just recently. They can remember when they were trying to get an internship. And so identify with your story, a connection to their story that resonates with them, because they obviously had hustle. They had initiative. They were able to, find opportunities that got them to where they are today. So you have to think the same way. And I think talking about those things, what you're passionate about, why you're passionate about it, and how you can bring value to their company is going to stick out.
Well, this is what I'm trying to explain to them is that if I get if it comes in through a general website from Melt and it says attaches my resume and I need to make $1, I'll automatically flush those. If they've taken time to research me and my story, and if I went to Auburn or, the success I've had with Melt, and they talk about how they bring value to the organization, because if you hire a kid, you're going to be investing tens of thousands of dollars. And now there's a buyer's market for talent because there's so many people out of work in the marketing services business. So, a giant takeaway, guys, is that you need to show demonstrated value to Jim if you're going to get his attention to work for Influencer or any other company. And so I think that's a big takeaway. So Jim, in closing, talk about your go-to sources of information, books, podcasts, where you go to stay abreast of what's going on in our industry.
Oh man, my favorite topic, continuing education. For me, obviously, if you work in the sports industry, there's tons of newsletters you can subscribe to. You have to be disciplined to read them. There's obviously also a lot of content out there that can flood you and paralyze you. But I love Front Office Sports, love D1 Ticker for the college space. Those are two of my favorites. Podcast-wise, I listen to so many different podcasts, but really enjoy Entree Leadership, which is Dave Ramsey's podcast on entrepreneurship. Also really have always been into Tim Ferriss. He really does a good job of deconstructing the best thought leaders and impactors out there and how they got to where they are today. And I think stories are something I really identify with. And that brings me to books. Like, I'm a biography guy. I read all kinds of books, but I love a great biography. Bob Iger's recent autobiography was phenomenal about his rise from ABC all the way through Disney as CEO. Steve Jobs is still my favorite biography, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, Phil Jackson's 11 Rings. There's so many I love, because when you read stories by folks you admire, you see exactly what we've talked about in this interview, Vince, which is trials and tribulations are a part of everyone's stories, but the ones who've been successful have a trait of perseverance. They have the ability to be coached and take criticism and learn and be better as they go. And that's the key to life. And that's the key to success in anything you do.
Well, wow. This has been so good. Guys, I want you to listen to this. I want you to re-listen to this. My dear friend Jim is going to continue to be a leader, but you can really tell that he's also an inspirational leader. So Jim, continue the great work you're doing in the college space, NIL, influencer. I'm hoping that you hear from some of the great kids today, but we just really, really appreciate the time. What an honor and privilege it is for you to spend some time with us today. So
Vince,
thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for paving the way for entrepreneurs like me in the sports space. Really admire what you've built, and
thank you.
Really excited about continuing to build our relationship and of course the opportunity to get in front of your students. So thank you.
Yeah, just the wisdom you're sharing. We appreciate it. And we'll be back with you soon, and we'll continue to chart your amazing success and growth. So thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Vince. Hope you enjoyed today's virtual class. We'll be back soon with another edition of Melt University 2020.